The Whispering Walls, based on a true story. In 1987, the Turner family moved into a modest but charming two-story house in upstate New York. The house had stood for nearly a century, nestled among tall trees and a quiet neighborhood. Daniel and his wife Claire had two children, 10-year-old Annie and 8-year-old Max. The family had been looking for a fresh start after Daniel's job transfer, and the house on Willow Street seemed like the perfect place. However, from the moment they moved in, Annie felt something was off. She told her parents that the house seemed alive, with creaks and groans that were more than just the usual settling sounds. At night, she swore she could hear faint whispers coming from the walls of her bedroom. Her parents dismissed it as her imagination, explaining that old houses often made noises. But Annie insisted the whispers were real. One evening, just a few weeks after moving in, Claire was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard what sounded like someone talking softly upstairs. Thinking it was the kids, she called out to them, but neither responded. The house fell silent again, and Claire thought she must have been mistaken. Later that night, as the family sat down for dinner, Max mentioned hearing voices while he was playing in the basement earlier that day. "They were talking to me, but I couldn't understand what they were saying," he said casually between bites of food. Both Daniel and Claire exchanged uneasy glances. They tried to reassure the children, but something in their son's tone sent a chill down Claire's spine. The following week, things got stranger. One afternoon, Daniel was working in his office when he heard a loud thud from upstairs. He rushed to investigate, fearing the children had hurt themselves, but when he entered Annie's room, everything was in order. Yet the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. The air felt thick and oppressive, and for the first time, Daniel couldn't shake the sensation that there was something wrong with the house. Then the whispering returned, but louder this time. Annie began waking up in the middle of the night, crying and insisting she could hear voices coming from behind the walls. Claire, desperate to comfort her daughter, spent several nights in Annie's room, but never heard anything out of the ordinary. Still, there was something about the way Annie described the voices. She said they were getting clearer, and they weren't friendly. One night, around midnight, Claire was jolted awake by a loud banging sound. It seemed to be coming from within the walls. She froze, her heart racing, as the banging continued, moving from room to room. Claire woke Daniel, and the two of them checked every corner of the house but found nothing. The children were fast asleep, oblivious to the noise. The next morning, Daniel decided to do some investigating. He checked the walls for loose pipes or any possible explanation for the sounds, but everything seemed normal. Determined to get to the bottom of it, he went to the local library to research the house's history. What he discovered was disturbing. The house had once belonged to a man named Howard Mitchell, a reclusive figure who had lived there in the early 1900s. According to local records, Mitchell had been a troubled man, prone to violent outbursts. Rumors swirled that he had been involved in the disappearance of several local children, though no evidence had ever been found. One chilling detail caught Daniel's attention. Mitchell had sealed off parts of the house after his wife died, claiming the walls spoke to him. Disturbed by this revelation, Daniel returned home and told Claire everything. The couple considered moving, but they couldn't afford to leave just yet. Instead, they tried to keep things calm, telling themselves that the house was just old and that they were letting their imaginations get the best of them. But the house wouldn't let them forget. One evening, while Daniel was away on a business trip, Claire was putting Max to bed when she heard Annie talking to someone in her room. Thinking Annie was on the phone, Claire opened the door, only to find her daughter sitting on the floor, staring at the wall. Annie was whispering under her breath, her eyes wide and unblinking. "Annie, who are you talking to?" Claire asked, her voice trembling. Annie turned slowly, her face pale. "The man in the walls," she said. "He says he's trapped." Claire's blood ran cold. She rushed to her daughter and pulled her away from the wall, her heart pounding. That night, Claire didn't sleep. She kept hearing faint whispers, so soft she couldn't make out the words, but there was no mistaking their presence. A few nights later, the situation escalated. The family woke up to the sound of heavy banging from inside the walls. It was relentless, as if something or someone was trying to break free. Max screamed as his bedroom door slammed shut on its own. Daniel raced down the hallway to get him, but the door wouldn't budge. It took several minutes of frantic pulling before the door finally gave way, and Max, sobbing, fell into his father's arms. The Turners had reached their breaking point. The next day, they packed their bags and left the house for good, vowing never to return. They put it up for sale, but the few potential buyers who toured the property quickly changed their minds after experiencing strange occurrences during their visits. Objects moving on their own, the overwhelming feeling of being watched, and, of course, the whispering. The house still stands on Willow Street, abandoned and decaying. Locals avoid it, claiming that at night you can hear the faint sounds of children's voices echoing from within the walls, accompanied by the persistent whisper of a man trapped in his own madness. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened to Howard Mitchell or why the house seems so haunted, but one thing is certain: the walls hold dark secrets, and they're not done whispering.